Thirdly, love is the main ingredient that our society is missing. When convicted serial killer Ted Bundy was executed, cheers were heard outside the prison walls. Cheers came from outraged citizens and grieving family members of victims. Just prior to that execution, in an interview with Dr. James Dobson, he asked Bundy, "Do you deserve the punishment the state will inflict upon you?" This was his response: "I'm not going to kid you. I don't want to die. But I certainly deserve the most extreme punishment this society has. And society deserves to be protected from me and from others like me. On the other hand, well-meaning, decent people have condemned the behavior of a Ted Bundy, yet they walk past magazine racks full of the very kinds of things that send young kids down the road to be Ted Bundys. What scares me and appalls me, Dr. Dobson, is what I see on cable TV. The stuff that's coming into homes today would not have been shown in X-rated adult theaters 20 years ago." I did some research. In just the last 10 years, think of all the senseless murders that have taken place. There was the Beltway sniper attacks in 2002. 41-year-old John Allen Muhammad and 17-year-old Lee Boyd Marvel killed 10 and injured several others over the course of 3 weeks before their apprehension. There was the Red Lake Massacre of 2005. Jeff Weesey shot and killed his grandfather and his grandfather's girlfriend, both responding officers. He then proceeded to a local high school and shot and killed a security guard. Once inside the school, Weesey shot and killed 5 students and 1 teacher before committing suicide. He killed a total of 9 and injured 15. The Virginia Tech Massacre of 2007, Sing Hu Chu, using 2 pistols, killed 32 in 2 separate events, and then himself in the course of about 3 hours. The Geneva County Massacre of 2009, Michael McClendon, using an SKS rifle, a Bushmaster AR-15, and a .38 caliber handgun, killed 10 before shooting himself. On January 19th of this year, Christopher Spate killed 8 people in 3 locations in Appomattox, Virginia, with a high-powered rifle over the course of several hours before surrendering to police. I don't need to go on, but you get the picture. There's no love in our society. People don't care about other people. They inflict horrendous atrocities on other people with absolutely no feeling, it seems. But I want you to think about everyday life and evidences of love that we do see. See, love is not a feeling. Love is an action verb. It's not passive. It's an action verb. What about when an aging parent needs help 24 hours a day and their child, turned caretaker, is there for them despite growing weary of the responsibility? What about the single parent who's lonely and tired of being both mom and dad to the kids and struggling to keep their heads above water financially, still they press on? What about the teenagers who cry out for attention, for someone to listen to them? They say, "Look at me, listen to me. There's something inside of me that you need to hear and understand about me." And love responds. Love hears, love understands. The world is starving for love, and yet love is missing. So often. Jesus said, "A new commandment I give to you. Love one another as I have loved you. You must love one another. All men will know that you are my disciples if you have love one for another." Kids are joining gangs because of dysfunctional families. People joining cults and the New Age movement. Those are all signs of missing love in our society, in a world that's starved for love. Speaking of the New Age movement, I read about a New Ager the other day. And she talked about her crystal and her relationship with her crystal. She talked about the love that she receives from her crystal, how she sleeps with the crystal, and when she awakens in the morning, the love she feels emanating from her crystal. When I read that, I thought, how sad to be so starved for love that you try to find it in a rock. And think of that rock as a source of love. Well, in John's Gospel, chapter 8, we're going to look to Jesus for the perfect example of love. The story is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, beginning with verse 1. Are you with me? Okay. John chapter 8, verse 1. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn he appeared again in the temple courts, where all of the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law of Moses, it commands us to stone such a woman. Now, what do you say?" And John goes on in verse 6 to add a footnote. He says they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. Okay, here's the scene. Jerusalem is crowded. It's a festive time. There are people indulging in alcohol. Now, that's not why they came to Jerusalem, or at least that's not why they should have come to Jerusalem, but they're indulging in sinful acts. They're indulging in immorality. It's a time when the risk of getting caught in a sinful act would be much greater, and that's exactly what happened. So here comes this crowd of religious people. Take note, they were religious people. And they bring this woman to Jesus who's been caught in the act of adultery, and they make her stand before the Lord. And she's guilty. There's no question about that. She's guilty. She was caught in the very act. But notice what Jesus does. It says in the last part of verse 6, Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. I wonder what he wrote. It doesn't say, so we have no way of knowing. But I guess it really doesn't matter as much what he wrote as what he was doing. He was giving them an opportunity to reconsider, to think about what they were doing. He was giving them a chance to drop the stones and walk away. But they didn't do it. Verse 7 tells us, when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." Again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this point, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Now, let me suggest to you that this is one of those rare moments, or one of those precious moments, one of those treasured moments when the sinner was standing face to face with the Savior. And what does she find in that face? Not condemnation. She finds forgiveness. He doesn't condone her sin, but he doesn't condemn her either. He condemns her sin, but he doesn't condemn her. So there they are, just the two of them, and he asks, "Where are they? Where are your accusers, woman? Has no one condemned you?" And she says, "No one, Lord." And he says, "Neither do I condemn you either. So go and leave your life of sin."